Hello, everyone. GM, it's great to be here with you all for our space today. My name is W. I'm one of the people building up the Worldcoin Foundation. Today, we are excited to be talking about the importance of culture in adopting new emerging technologies. As always, please leave your questions in the chat and we'll save some time at the end to get to as many of them as we can. And with that, let me turn it over to John to get things started. I think John is here. Yeah, JP, I see him. Over to you, JP.
Yeah, that's me. Thank you so much, W. And hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Patroulis. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Tools for Humanity, which, as you know, is a contributor to the Worldcoin project. So I'm really excited about the discussion today. We have a couple amazing guests, and we're going to touch on something that's, I think, a really important topic, especially for the adoption of new technologies, the adoption of technologies that we know are important for the future and the future of the internet, and the role that culture plays in helping people understand and use those technologies. For this topic, we've got two great guests. One is Greg Bresnitz. He's the CEO of Friends with Benefits, which I'm going to guess most of you already know is a new kind of social network DAO working with creatives and builders to platform the better internet, which is what really drew us to them. Such a terrific community. Greg, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, John, you said it really well. Greg Bresnitz, CEO of FWB, was a member first and now running things. And as John said, we really focus on culture and really are looking to build this platform of better internet. Our overarching mission, and I think this is why we're interested and really enjoyed working with Worldcoin, is to use culture to drive the adoption of emerging tech. We see a lot of hammers out there. We see a lot of cement out there, but we don't see a lot of houses or cars or bridges or good use cases. And so what we're excited is to take, our extensive history and using culture in the cultural landscape and really introduce a lot of this new technology and frame it and position it in a way that people can really respond and even understand. So excited to be here, excited to talk about the partnership that we put together.
All right, Greg, you've already had a chance to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what Friends with Benefits is all about. So thank you for that. But I know that the two of us have had a lot of conversations between us in private. So I'd love to dig in and maybe we can communicate it a little bit more publicly. You talk about the idea of the adoption of emerging technologies through culture. I think that's a very clear articulation of how you see it and how your community comes together and what their intention is. But could you talk about that a little bit more and go a little deeper into it?
Yeah, sure. I think I can start with a little bit of my background to give framing of how, at least my own journey, and why I was drawn to FWB. I remember reading about the Internet of Things many years ago and it being kind of one of the first light bulb moments that technology was going to be more than just in the background or just computers, and that technology was actually going to really influence our ways of life. And that I also realized that it was, had to start really paying attention, that nothing was going to be something you could just read about in an article and pick up. So over the last decade or so, I've done, a number of projects with emerging tech and run them through a cultural lens. Commissioned the first ever 3D printed black dress with Dita Von Teese and Michael Schmidt, and Francis Vittanti, which was quite good. Did early stuff with IBM Watson, and then landed in 2017 on blockchain and just the implications of what it would be. And so I was always under the impression that if I was into something and I was really about it, a lot of people that was my audience, I worked in hospitality and events at the time, would also be curious, but might not either have the time to dive into it or even understand the implications of it. You can fast forward to now where obviously we've accelerated. Technology is culture, period. And the implications of it are being played out in real time and even faster than real time. So we at FWB, our first start was Trevor spun up a token-gated Discord and put out this infamous text back in 2020. What about starting a community, and started, giving out tokens. And that's where we started. What does it mean to be bound socially by this? And then obviously, that was 3.5 years ago, the space has evolved and the technologies that we're dealing with evolved, but people's understanding has maybe not evolved. In fact, maybe their understanding has gone to fear because it's moving so fast. So a lot of what we do is because we're at the edge, or a lot of our community members work at the bleeding edge, we like to take all of these new implications, all these new understandings, all these new tools, and run it through a cultural lens. So it looks maybe more recognizable or maybe easier to understand, or at the very least, not sitting in a place of fear and distance, but entering into difficult conversations and encouraging discourse. And we really believe that culture is that glue, is that connectivity that allows people to have a conversation that doesn't pull people towards like different sides of an argument, but allows them to get in there and debate the ideas and not people.
Yeah, that's great, man. I really, it's very powerful. It's something I really believe in. I know you do it for the higher purpose of platforming a better internet, that you want to make sure that people are understanding and starting to engage with new technologies, get past the fear, so that something better for everyone can happen. And it's so important. I really believe you have to move past logic into emotion for people to really be able to listen. You got to be able to share things in a way that human beings want to hear them. And obviously logic is so important. Having the foundation that is clear and scientific is deeply important, but communicating in ways that human beings want to be communicated with and can hear it and accept it and maybe get curious about it and get past fear. It feels so important.
Yeah. And I think you said it so well. And I think culture and emotion, but what it really leads to is narrative and storytelling and framing. I think a lot of things these days, we move so fast, things are taken out of context. People interpret it in their own way. So narrative really and positioning becomes really important. And being a way to see things or see things from different sides becomes really crucial in trying to understand things that are so complex. I think the ideas that we are dealing with, and at the very least the technology that we're dealing with now, is unique in humankind, just at the mass implications and the mass scale that is upon us. It's quite different than even just like the Industrial Revolution. So I think that being able to frame this and to take the time to give this in a way that, people who are not dedicating day in, day out to this, but still want to understand what's going on, emotion, narrative, storytelling, are all crucial elements that have almost nothing to do with the technology, but everything to do with understanding it and figuring out your place alongside it.
That's really well said. And I would love, and this is probably a great bridge to let's talk a little bit about the collaboration that we did together between FWB and the Worldcoin project. For anybody that doesn't know, about a month ago, FWB and Tools for Humanity partnered up to introduce Worldcoin at the Ferreira Material during Mexico City Art Week in February, which in the end, I think that was very powerful about it. We talk about using culture, but I think we found something that became culture, which is, I think, the most powerful way to do it. Do you want to describe the idea and what it was and how we brought it to life?
Yeah, and I might take one step back. I think for us, like, we're really interested in being at the edge of culture and being involved in the story. And we're not shy of taking difficult topics and ideas head on. And I think when we had always wanted to go to Mexico City Artwork and do some art week and do something. It's really it's incredible. People have not been down there. It's very different. The city is probably one of the most vibrant I've ever been to. And Zonamaka has been going on for 20 years. Ferreira Material, it's the biggest art fair there. It just celebrated its 10th anniversary. And we wanted to do something. And when we were approached by Worldcoin to maybe do a partnership along with their rollout in Mexico, we thought, oh, this would be interesting. I don't think I'm telling anybody on here anything new that Worldcoin has, there's differentiated viewpoints of Worldcoin in the world. And we can say that, and I know John and I will talk about that later. But for us, underneath like the people who are wrapped up in their viewpoints is really big ideas and really big implications that two things, A, are happening, and B, needs to be discussed. Right now, like these are some of the biggest issues in the world. And what we found is that the conversation was being drowned out by people who are reacting negatively or just standing in their viewpoint. So our idea was to bring Worldcoin into an art fair. We have found that artists have taken on difficult subjects, whether it be war, life, existence itself, and been open-minded, and through the lens of creativity and through the lens of art, been able to take on different discussions and have it in what's behind everything and get to the heart of the matter. So our idea was to bring Worldcoin into a contemporary art fair and to introduce, still the big ideas, still the same ideas that are eliciting big reactions, and presenting them to a new audience to have a different type of discussion around the same topic.
And I think what made it so powerful is it really was, as you said, it was presenting it as in the idea state. And so it became an exhibit about the idea, where the Worldcoin orb was really an expression of what being a person. It was the title of the piece was Paradox of Personhood, and just investigated what it is to be human and in general, and what it is to be human right now as technologies are emerging. And one of the things that was very powerful that I found was, as you talked about using culture to be able to communicate so that people can hear. In an art setting, people are looking for big ideas. People are looking to be challenged, are looking for provocations, want intellectual exchange. And so it was a setting where people could really hear it. And it ended up being very powerful, and we know landed quite well, which was terrific. One of the things I definitely want to touch on that you said, that the idea itself is challenging because it is a new technology. And there was definitely some challenges, I know, within the community itself and within your community. And I really want to touch on that. We've got Tiago, I think, is back in because after you started having discussions around this, you invited Tiago, me, and we had Martin, who leads Latin America, since the event was going to be down in Mexico, and invited us in to have a conversation. And I would love, Tiago, are you in?
Yeah, of course. It was awesome to get to join the community call on Discord a few weeks back. I think generally it's very natural to have questions about Worldcoin, right? It's a very striking project. You are, at the end of the day, people are looking into a shiny ball to join this new economy, and that's very futuristic. And so I think there's some very natural questions that come with that. And so I think the cool thing about the FWB community is that they're also very technical, right? And so it's actually quite easy to explain how the system is not just private, but is perhaps one of the most private systems we've ever used, period. And so when you are able to talk through the mission, what exactly we're trying to accomplish, how people are fully empowered with the self-custodial nature of not just the wallet, but also their ID, and how their identity is protected at all times, which your knowledge proves. I would say, at least I got DMs from a couple of people that said they changed their minds after that conversation. And that's generally what both that event was about, but in general, also the exposition, right? It's about looking at all of these ideas through a different lens that perhaps we hadn't considered. And so, yeah, I was very, very glad we got to do that.
Greg, do you want to talk about it a little bit? Thanks, Tiago. Do you want to talk about it a little bit from your side? What was happening and pulling in and having the opportunity for us to share mainly for Tiago, to share the technical information and answer questions.
Yeah. So the FWB makeup, and you both touched on this, we are like cultural producers, technologists, futurists. We are deeply technical as much as we are cultural. And we've been along for the ride of Web3. Our founder, Trevor, started a Facebook group for people to trade meme coins and ICO. And it was really incredible. It's like we've been in it from like the beginning. And so we've seen good actors and bad actors come into the space. And I think that there's a high level of cynicism or mistrust among any new projects that are essentially dealing with the future from some of our members. Some of our members are optimists. Some of us are cynics. That's what makes us a great community of 4,500 members, which is just really incredible. We announced this partnership, and to say that there was a response is a bit of an understatement, but I remember just texting John and being like, hey, we might have something we need to discuss. And I'm just going to read a quote that actually one of our members literally just tweeted. He said, the most divisive partnership in FW history actually got a bunch of people to come back to the Discord to voice their opinion. While I might not be a Worldcoin fan, I love the partnership for inspiring conversations that we've yet to have and get Sideline folks active again. And that was from Nick George, one of our top members. And I think that really encapsulates what this was about, that it wasn't really good, it wasn't really bad, but it was definitely a bomb thrown off in our Discord that got people off the sidelines to really just discuss. And some were good and some were not great. But what was amazing was this incredible 5-day discourse about the pros and cons, not just about Worldcoin, but about biometrics, UBI, the implications, even larger to the philosophical side of like, what is the reason for Worldcoin's existence and why this is so important now? Do people see the world going in this way? Do they see people going down this path? And so we announced this on Thursday morning, and John and I had a conversation at the end of the day on Thursday. And I said, I think it would be really great. And this actually came from OK Jose, who's in the chat, who is the CEO of our sister product studio, Seed Infrastructure Company, and said it would be really great if we could get John and some of the other people into an AMA with our members to have kind of like a no holds bar discussion. And to Worldcoin's credit, it was an immediate yes. So we announced on a Thursday, and just from scheduling, on Monday, we had this, and I think it was maybe 100 plus members came in, and John and Tiago, and I apologize, forget the head of Latam, just patiently answered the questions as members asked very difficult questions. And I believe that was two things. One, I don't think that there's any other DAO in the world that could have this type of like level of engagement. But two, I think Worldcoin, to their credit, patiently answered the questions and understood the implications of what has happened and the importance of having these type of open dialogues.
Yeah, I think it was, one, it was appreciated. Two, I know the importance. When I say I know, it's really the team, the importance of transparency around everything that we're building. As we said at the start, it's emerging technology. And there's a lot of questions, and there's questions we ask each other every day. There's quite so that we're asking of ourselves. We want to be engaging and want to be open and want to hear. We're kind of all building this together. And I will say it was a pretty powerful experience. And when we came off it, Tiago fielded many of the questions because most of it was about the tech itself. And I think we felt very good. I mean, we loved it because it was an opportunity to actually hear and respond. And I think we all need more of that as we're growing and where the world's going. On top of then, as we do that, have the discussions open. And as you say, use culture and become part of culture so that people can hear the answers and make decisions for themselves. I think it's a very powerful forum for that.
Yeah. And I think, again, John and I have talked about this extensively, where some companies want to be like, what's the problem? Why are people reacting this way? And what's been amazing from our side, culture doesn't necessarily just mean that it's great music and a good fit, finding the coolest things. I think culture, and especially culture in the lens of technology, really has like large implications for where we are as humans and what does the future hold. Being able to, it's very easy to look at a company like Worldcoin and make your own opinion. It's another thing to get to know the people behind it and to get to know the humans behind it and to spend time with something this is probably one of the more complicated ideas in a sea of complicated ideas, both with AI and Web3. And so being able to spend time with it, I don't know if we changed, and I definitely know we did not change everyone's viewpoint in FWB. And I think that there are some members who probably, if they had their way, wish that like we were not doing something like this. But I also know there's a number of members who, like the quote before, came to appreciate the discussion, and then we had some people's minds changed as well. So I think this type of openness, and I think it's for the larger technology landscape, the more openness, the more discourse, the less talking points, the less hiding behind a press release, and the more ability to get deep to the heart of the matter is actually what's going to allow us to navigate this together versus just hiding behind something where, that's where the opaqueness and the nefarious ideas might start to enter.
I know that we might lose Tiago in a little bit, so I want to make sure that Tiago gets another chance. If there's any, because I think it's a good segue into Tiago if he can hear. I know that we're all having trouble with this app right now, but he is a fan, he's a fan of this, and he puts himself out there again and again to answer questions. And he actually always, he says to me, he appreciates it. He relishes the opportunity. I don't know if Tiago, if you want to speak to that at all before you have to jump, which I know you do.
Yeah, it's just super fun, right? Getting to talk about people because there's either they're right in what they're saying, and there's just things that we need to improve, and that's very good to hear. And that's not rare. Like it's quite often that there's things that the project needs to improve on, or there is some misunderstanding in between. And so it's just very fun teasing that apart and then getting to explain, actually, no, here's what we're trying to do, or here's how the project works. And so it doesn't really matter which of those two cases is. It's a win in both scenarios. And I think a lot of what we think about is when when you get to spend time with someone like that, those conversations are very humanizing for both sides, and they're usually very productive. I think something that we think a lot about is, Greg, as you're saying, this is a complex project, right? There's a lot of moving pieces. You have the hardware and the software and the protocol and the AI. And so all of what we think about is, okay, it shouldn't take a 15-minute conversation, right? Or it shouldn't take an AMA to be able to understand those nuances, right? So what are alternative ways we can try to explain that and convey what the project is about? And so I think that something like the art project with FWB was an interesting exploration of that, right? Where it's just different avenues to try to convey these ideas that are important, and you can agree with them or you can disagree with them, but at least it's just different ways of expressing them. But having said that, yeah, still my favorite thing to do is just having a good old sit down with people and just let them bring the hot takes, because as John, who knows me quite well, knows, I'm full of hot takes. So I love hearing other people's hot takes.
I still have the idea. We're going to have a regular Tiago takes your worst, and then and go through it, because you're always just open to every single question. And I know it always goes well because you always have good answers, or are open to hearing what we might be able to do better.
Or I don't, but I think the last thing I would say just as we leave is, as much as I've been loosely involved in FWB before, but I think it just says a lot about the community that a place where some people agree and some people disagree, there's still a forum to discuss ideas. And I think it says a lot about the community. It says a lot about Greg and his leadership, that I think that we live in a time where a lot of communities or organizations would just suppress you people don't like, or they don't want to have conversations. And I think that's not how we make progress in the world, right? We make progress by discussing the difficult topics and difficult ideas, understanding the world, people trying to do our best. And so it's a ton of credit to the entire FWB community for being willing to engage.
Thank you for that, Tiago.
And to that point, after that openness, I think we all felt that and appreciated it. And then we had the event. Greg, what was the response from the community, obviously after the discussions and after the event itself, after they had seen what the exhibit was and how it went?
Yeah, Web3 moves fast. After we announced Worldcoin, we had some other things that took our attention. We launched our sister products company, Scene Infrastructure Company, and that took people's attention. But once people saw it was great. I think for those of you who didn't see it, I think we can probably post some images. If this is on YouTube, we can post some photos from it. But we were really inspired by the Worldcoin white paper. When we were reading through it, my chief brand officer, Steph, and I were going through it. We were looking at it, and then we came upon the photos of the eyeballs that were ran through the Ganser filters, and they were stunning. And that actually ended up being the backbone for the art exhibition. So if you can find photos of it on our Instagram, that is I think it's one of the devs. It's their eyeballs. We got consent. And it's really beautiful. And so we were able to use the actual photographs from the orb as the artworks, we co-wrote a text together on our editorial page about the paradox of personhood. Shout out to Steph, who really authored that and muscled it through. And the response was great. Material is one of the best fairs out there. I think 15,000 people came through. We had thousands of people come by the booth. And we were not looking for it, but John wrote us on Friday morning that Universal, the biggest paper in Mexico, said that this was the most daring work of art in the art fair. And I don't know how many of you work with underwritten booths, but booths like this do not get recognized normally as artworks. And so I think it's a testament to the beauty of the images and then the strength of this partnership to really present something meaningful within what is an exceptional art fair. So both from the newspaper, from the people at the fair, and then from our own community. Again, there are some people who are never going to like this, but I think there was a begrudging to full throttle respect for what was presented of a difficult topic in an interesting setting.
And yeah, I think pulling it back to everything we've been talking about, it really, because I was there for a few of the days, and the number of open conversations, again, and in that setting, people are open to provocative ideas. They're open to newness. They're open to being intellectually challenged, emotionally challenged. And it was a great way to be able to openly just talk about the project and with an audience that was coming for that, frankly, to be challenged. It was very powerful and went as well. It did everything that we were certainly hoping for it to do, and we're looking forward to doing more. Maybe we could, to start pulling, I know we need to start pulling it together now. Knowing your new manifesto, I shouldn't say your new manifesto leaves you, but there's a lot of energy coming from FWB right now, which is exciting. Is there anything you want to speak to about where the DAO is headed? And I know that we would like to be, we're making some plans together and some things that we're going to do together. Do you want to speak a little bit about anything that you want to talk about with FWB?
Yeah, back in January, we published a manifesto called Decentralization and Desire. And you can go to fwb.help/editorial or just our homepage and find it. And we essentially planted a flag that culture, and this is very much in the blockchain Web3 world, but culture is actually going to be what's going to onboard the next 10 million or billion users, as we like to say in the industry. The financialization of everything is actually not netted out. I still think while it's the biggest headlines, it's still a very rarefied air for people who get to be degens or be accessible to that. And if I think we saw that the financialization of everything was actually going to drive adoption, there'd be more people in the space. But it's actually culture that we've seen time and time again that brings in net new users. And so that is our focus for the year. We just announced our annual fest. It's our third year. It's in Idlewild, California. It's 1,000 people of the most concentrated, like cultural, tech, optimists, thinkers, musicians, creators. It's August 1st through 4th. And our meta theme this year is the year of validation, and validation in all the sense. Obviously a play on words for developers, but validation of we've survived a number of bull markets. We've survived a number of sky is falling, and yet we're still here. And so what does it mean to be validated in the space? What does it mean to have the tech that we not only believe in to move past just the hammers and cement stage, but as I said before, go into the homes, cars, building era. So if anyone wants to join us in what I would say is arguably the best setting for a cultural and tech conference and music festival, you can go get tickets at our website. So we're looking forward to having Worldcoin out there, and we'll be announcing a bunch of speakers who share the same optimism and skepticism at the same time up in the mountains.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. I think we're going to, just thanks so much for this conversation. Thanks for the partnership. And I'm looking forward to more in the future. I think we'll turn it to W if you want to go over any questions and close us down.
Yeah, very cool listening to you guys. I learned a bunch. I hope I can join the next events. Definitely will try with the fest. Relevant question that I see is from the user Derivativator. Great username. I think I butchered it. Sorry about that. The question is, hey, do we have any updates about the project supported by Worldcoin community grants? When can we see things happening? We already announced, the foundation has announced the first grant recipients. It's on the blog.worldcoin.org. You can get the full list there. It's, I think, 28 teams, and we recorded a full space about it with some of the grantees. More info soon. The team is pushing on that, and sometime probably end of month or early next month, we will be announcing next wave. And before that, we'll for sure do a deeper dive with update from the teams that are already working on building out the Worldcoin project. And with that, I think this is all for today. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you, Tiago, who already jumped off, for taking the time for this super cool and important conversation. And thank you, everybody, for listening in and contributing with the questions. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.